Hello and welcome everybody to From Beyond.
Hi everybody, how you doing?
Lee does it there. I'm Steve Stockton. This here's Lee G from First Floor Audio. We're going to talk about some UFO cases. There's one in particular tonight, the abduction of Betty and Barney Hill. How's everybody doing? Let's go to the chat here. See who all we've got with us. We got quite a few folks in here for our inaugural episode. Ted Branston's here. Dogface, Cathedra Cat Gray, D-Rock, I Be Stroking, Ghost Lore, Fast Hemi, my wife, Midnight Society. Who else? Scrolling on down here. Dogface, how you doing, you Kiwi? Joey Jump Productions, good to see you. Larry Smith, how you doing?
It's lovely to see loads of you turn up. That's good.
Yeah, I got a RP Skies is here. D-Rock.
Let's bring it on.
Let's go. Well, I've got a video put together here, just a little intro, about 3 minutes, to tell you kind of what we're going to be talking about. I'll do the video first, and then I've got a little bit that I want to read, and then we'll just kind of go from there. Anything you want to say before we get started, Lee?
No, just enjoy yourself, guys. Don't take it too much too seriously. You know, we're going to be light-hearted about all this. We just take it from a point of view that we're on the discovery trail, the same as everybody else. We know these stories have been around for years, but you know, the likes of myself, I've never really delved into it on a personal level like this. You know, so I'm going to treat it as I know nothing. I'll need to learn it all.
And we're not here to try to convince you of anything, nor are we here to debunk anything. We're just here to present the facts as they're known, as we've found them, and let the chips fall where they may. So
exactly.
Let's watch this little video about the Betty and Barney Hill case. Barney Hill incident. Now, there have been numerous UFO sightings since the first reported one in 1947. One of the most notable is that of Betty and Barney Hill, an American couple who became famous in the 1960s for claiming to be abducted by extraterrestrial beings. The Hills were driving back to their Portsmouth, New Hampshire home on September 19, 1961, after vacationing in Canada. While driving through the White Mountains, they noticed a bright light in the sky that seemed to follow them. At first, they thought it was a shooting star, but it soon became apparent that it was something else entirely. As they continued to drive, the light grew closer and brighter, and eventually they could see that it was a large, disc-shaped object that appeared to be hovering above the treetops and was utterly silent. Barney stopped the car, and they got out to look closer. According to their later accounts, the Hills saw several humanoid creatures looking out at them from the craft's windows. These beings were described as about 5 feet tall, with gray skin and large wraparound eyes. They were wearing black uniforms and seemed to be communicating with each other in a language that the Hills could not understand. Terrified, the Hills fled to their car and left as fast as possible. They began to experience strange sensations, including a tingling sensation in their bodies and a buzzing sound in their ears. They claimed the car was vibrating and the steering wheel was becoming difficult to control. The Hills realized that they could not account for 2 hours when they returned home. They also noticed physical evidence that something unusual had happened to them. Betty's dress was torn, the lining was ripped out, and Barney's shoes were scraped and scuffed in a way that suggested he had been dragged. Over the next few days, the Hills began to experience strange dreams and nightmares. Betty dreamed of being taken aboard the craft and subjected to a medical examination, while Barney dreamed of being interrogated by these beings. These dreams and nightmares continued for several weeks, and the Hills became increasingly convinced that aliens had abducted them. Eventually, they sought the help of a local psychiatrist named Dr. Benjamin Simon. Under hypnosis, Betty and Barney recounted their experiences in great detail, including their encounters with the beings and the medical procedures performed on them. According to Betty, the beings had shown her a map depicting a series of interconnected lines and dots representing various stars and star systems. She would later draw the star map for Dr. Simon. The Hills' story became the subject of much debate and controversy in the following years. Skeptics argued that the Hills' experiences could be explained by sleep paralysis or other psychological phenomena, while believers saw their story as proof of alien visitation. Despite the controversy, the Hill story has remained one of history's most well-known and influential cases of UFO abduction. It has inspired countless books, movies, and TV shows, and continues to fascinate and intrigue people worldwide.
You're muted. You're muted, Steve.
There we go. I had to find the right button. And the joys of doing anything live.
That's
Got
it.
a little
Yep.
thing here that I wrote out that I want to put together. Now, the Betty and Barney Hill incident is one of the most famous cases in UFO abduction history. It took place on the night of September 19th and 20th, 1961, in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. Betty and Barney Hill, an interracial couple, claimed to have been abducted by extraterrestrial beings while driving on Route 3. The Hills reported seeing a bright light in the sky that seemed to be following them. As they continued their journey, they claimed the light descended and revealed a spacecraft. They described the beings aboard the craft as humanoid in appearance, with gray skin and large wraparound eyes. The couple reported that they experienced a period of missing time and later realized they had traveled a significant distance during that time. Betty and Barney both underwent hypnosis separately to recall the details of their encounter, which revealed a consistent and detailed narrative of being taken aboard the spacecraft, subjected to medical examinations, and then released. Now, one of the key aspects of the Hill case is the use of hypnosis to recover memories. Critics argue that hypnosis can lead to the creation of false memories, but proponents of the theory argue that it helped the Hills retrieve suppressed memories of this otherwise traumatic event. Supporters of the Hills account point to several factors that add credibility to their story. First, the couple had no prior interest in UFOs or extraterrestrial phenomena. Additionally, their backgrounds and social standing were considered stable and reliable. Betty Hill was a social worker, and Barney Hill worked for the U.S. Postal Service. Furthermore, the Hills reported physical evidence associated with the encounter, such as mysterious markings on Betty's dress and damage to Barney's shoes. These artifacts were examined by scientists and deemed unusual, but their significance remains a subject of debate. The Betty and Barney Hill incident garnered significant attention and remains a focal point in discussions about UFO abductions and encounters. While skeptics argue that the case can be explained by psychological factors or other natural phenomena, supporters maintain that the Hills account is a true and verifiable report of extraterrestrial contact. The incident has left an indelible mark on UFO folklore, if nothing else, and continues to be a subject of fascination and debate within the realm of paranormal research. So what do you think there, Lee? Do you think they are telling the truth, or just what's your opinion?
I think it's really hard to debunk if it's a debunkable kind of thing, considering there was nothing before that, you know. It's why would someone make up that story, you know, just out of nowhere? Yeah, that's why I've always looked at that one. You know, obviously I know about it, but I don't know didn't know the deep details of it. You know, when you sort of half listen to stories and stuff and you don't really absorb it all. It's only now really I'm actually listening properly. Do you know what I mean? And to me, why on earth, if you've got a stable career and you're talking about in the 50s when, you know, interracial couples weren't exactly embraced, and, you know, why would you make a big scene of yourself? You know, you would usually keep yourself under the radar kind of thing. You know, you wouldn't make a big, let alone make up a story that's gonna bring a lot of ridicule.
Yeah,
you know.
Indeed. And then the other thing that I find fascinating is the star map that she drew under hypnosis. That's been studied by astronomers, and I think you were saying that was
Zeta Reticuli.
There you go. Now, this is a couple that they said they had no prior interest in UFOs or anything extraterrestrial to come forth and tell these stories. That, to me, there's at least a nugget of truth in there. I don't think you could have a memory under hypnosis of something like that you hadn't studied or didn't know about.
No, I mean, where would you get it from? Where would you get it from? I mean, even if because I mean, they say that, you know, we keep certain photographs of whatever we've seen as children and stuff like that. I mean, but the chances of, you know, you as a child seeing a map of and then being able to draw it later, and it's just strange. The whole abduction thing to me is just crazy. And why would people? Because it it brings a lot of hassles for people. It's not something that's embraced when people look up and say, "I was abducted." You know, it's the same as when you say, "I've seen something." It's not people just either laugh and shrug, or they ignore you've said it, or laugh at you. So
and obviously it upset them. Yeah, go ahead.
In them days, I think it would have been a lot more severe with the ridicule.
Yeah. And again, obviously, it disturbed them to the point that they sought out. They were looking for answers. They couldn't remember or figure out what happened, which is where the hypnosis came in. And I believe that was one of the first cases of hypnotic regression.
Being used for that sort of purpose.
That sort of thing. And then the fact that they both had pretty much consistency in their testimony that they gave under those hypnosis sessions. The narrative remained consistent, which I think adds credibility to their account.
See, my thing is this: if, for instance, as they always say, a clandestine group of people know about these things that aren't in the control of the government and stuff like that, this like it's something to do with the industrial military complex, and even back then maybe it was already established. See, how do we know that the whole thing about hypnotic regression doesn't work was a psyop to make you think that it's a load of rubbish, so that you don't believe people that come out and say these things when they're under hypnosis? Do you know what I mean? This is what always. Why would it still be used? I mean, it sort of leads me to think about the case in Nome. I don't know if anybody's seen The Fourth Kind. It's that sort of thing where they've used hypnotic regression, and everybody in the whole town had the same kind of memories. Now, why would the whole town see that? And that to me verifies what they said back then. Betty and Barney Hill. Where would they get those sort of imagery from as well? This is the thing with the wraparound eyes, the grey skin. Why would they say that? I mean, in them days, they'd have said they had tentacles and things like that, because the aliens of the day were Martians, and they would have said the word Martians if they were referring to those kind of things. They wouldn't, the sci-fi of the day, which, I mean, back then, wasn't it? It was only just past Jules Verne kind of attitude, wasn't it? Really?
Yeah, it really was. I mean, this was, during the time of the space race and things like that, but it was still a growing field. And as far as hypnotic regression, they've used that successfully in criminal cases.
Yeah,
people
exactly.
Recall
and it's been
a license plate that they saw at the scene of a crime.
Yeah, so if it's okay for that, why is it not okay for that? And that's why I say the whole thing of it's not trustworthy. I think that's a bit of a psyop. That's my personal opinion, because then you can just write off anything that you don't want to admit is a reality. You know what I mean? Or you want to laugh it down or play it down. So if you're, for instance, if you're a government body or whatever, or a secret body of people that are taking the technology or whatever and using it, you don't want everybody else to know that you're doing that, so you laugh and make ridicule of anything to do with it. And I think that's a lot of it. That's just my opinion.
And then also there's two different camps in the suppressed memory that wasn't put there by some entity, something that didn't want you to remember, or does your own brain do that to keep you from just shattering your psyche from a very traumatic experience, sort of a form of PTSD, where the mind literally shuts down and compartmentalizes that experience off to where you cannot remember it unless under regression. So it's interesting to think about.
It's a crazy thing. I think the whole, like I said, this is why I'm always been interested in this subject, even though it's classed as one of the fringe subjects. But why would it be fringe when so many in the world, including myself, have seen things that they can't really explain? millions upon millions of claims of abduction. I mean, millions. And yeah, you could say that they've all got, you know, they're using the excuse of, you know, what they've heard from Betty and Barney Hill, the first original case with the wraparound eyes and the grey aliens and stuff. But do you know, in your opinion, like mine, I would have thought, surely not everybody's lying.
Yeah.
So,
And it's one of those things. I mean, this was a social worker and a postal worker.
exactly, you know.
The UFO phenomenon, the abduction phenomenon, it encompasses all the socioeconomic levels. There have been people in all countries at all levels of work and life and life history and experience and things that have made these claims.
Yeah, I think that's the problem, because, you know, from the point of view of the people that don't want people to know, I think that's where the ridicule comes from. You know, but why? If there's nothing at all to worry about, then why not be able to talk about it openly? Why not? What I mean, it's like the visits from the Men in Black kind of thing. You know, why would, if there's nothing to it, and there's nothing to no problem with it, why would people have visits or threats from you know, Air Force members or whatever, to not talk about certain things,
suppressing it or covering it up? Yeah, exactly.
Why would there even be the need for that? Because if there was nothing to discover, you wouldn't be threatened by you know, it's a threat to national security stuff. What a story that you think I've made up. It would be a threat to national security. How'd that work?
It's kind of ridiculous when you frame it in that perspective.
There you go.
A lot of those Men in Black cases, the Men in Black would show up and tell them not to talk before they had ever had a chance to talk. Sometimes immediately after the experience.
How did they even know?
Get a knock on the door. Don't tell anyone what you saw in the field. You know, that sort of thing. So
I mean, that's what's crazy. That is crazy. I mean, before they've even opened their mouth to a soul, not phoned anybody or talked to anybody, there's a tap at the door, and there's a couple of ominous looking guys there stood there that they say don't even look human. I mean, that's creepy for a start, isn't it? You know, they look cloned or whatever. Yeah, in that always gets to that image. You know, that image where there's like a hotel lobby or whatever it is, and there's that the CCTV footage of two guys walk in, and that little kid craps himself and kind of walks away and then keeps looking at them, and you know, you can't really see their faces, but everybody that was in that building said that these people had no eyebrows and had really strange features and stuff, and they looked the same. And
they usually wear out-of-date clothing, but it looks like it's brand new, never been laundered, and they drive old-fashioned automobiles, again, that appear to be brand new. And they speak in odd tones and use phrases that aren't in vogue anymore. It's like they're from a time warp or from a different time. So
it's just weird. Either that the information they've got was because, as we know, you know, out into the reaches of space kind of thing, just outside of our galaxy, is where our sound from the 1960s has just about got. So if they've discovered that information and watched video of footage of films and stuff from that era, they're going to mimic that, aren't they? If they're going to interact, they're not going to be up to date until they literally come here and then really take notice of what's actually here. So they might, in readiness, get ready there, you know, maybe because they fold space or whatever they do to get. I'm just scenario of them actually being here, and that being the aliens saying don't talk about us. You know, because it always goes back. Does it go back to the Eisenhower deal? You know, the deal that Eisenhower was supposed to be privy to. You know, the deal that was made with beings that you know, we got technology and they got to do whatever they like.
The treaty that was signed, and I think of a treaty as something that's done during a war to keep the other side from obliterating.
Yeah, exactly. I mean that spooks the hell out of me. I don't know about everybody else, but that one thing there, you know, that Eisenhower statement just freaked me out.
His granddaughter, Laura Magdalene Eisenhower, she's a friend of mine, and she says that, just without batting an eye or anything, that within her family it was just an open secret about this midnight meeting that happened with Ike with I think Roosevelt was there too.
Yeah, that's it.
Churchill
Yeah.
was there. Aleister Crowley. A lot of people you
Yeah,
wouldn't
Alistair
think of
Crowley. Yeah, I mean,
necessarily as being at a meeting for things like this, but they all had to sign this accord or whatever it was, and they did get the technology in exchange, but it was also a treaty to keep from obliterating Earth or the
yeah.
threat of the same.
Well, I've always said this. Our technology's grown too fast for where did it? Where did those ideas originate? Like some of the materials that that we've discovered or whatever. The mixing of certain alloys and these things are
Things like cold fusion and
yeah. There's
things that
some
were just
strange things.
unthought of, unheard of.
There's also another thing that I always say. Everybody now has a tablet or a phone, don't they? With all this technology, with a computer in your hand, right? Now, if that's what you call throwaway technology, in other words, it's no good for the military anymore, right? Military don't need it because if they needed it, you wouldn't have it. Okay, so anything that we get to use is no longer usable or no longer cared about by by the military, and obviously they have all the highest tech first because it's always developed with defense and stuff in mind. Yeah.
Yep.
So if all humanity's been given these devices or been allowed to have these devices and use them, it always makes me wonder what they've got, that we don't know about because obviously,
And you hear that the things you
secrecy
see
and
in films that it seems so far out there that in a lot of cases the military already has it, and that's their way of like a soft release of it to get people
yeah,
to used to the idea of
yeah.
these strange technologies and things, sort of programming you to accept it. And then when it is revealed that they have it, then you're not surprised because you've seen it in movies for the last
There you go.
decade.
There you go. That's that. Well, it's been a proven thing, isn't it? That the CIA and the movie industry have been closely linked because that's why TVs is called. That's why things are called programs.
Programming, exactly.
They're
And
called programs for a reason because they are programming.
Scott L points out there was such a fast jump in tech advancement.
Yep.
Look from the early, even into the later 60s, supposedly the computers that they used on those
Yep.
NASA moon landings.
Yep.
My
Well, like
Commodore
calculators.
64 back in the day had
Your
more
watch.
horsepower.
You can have a watch now that would
The,
run
the
that better.
phone has got 10 times that. So
Yep. Yep. Like I said, the advance in technology is far too quick. The same as I think the development of mankind. Again, you look at the length of how dinosaurs and stuff, changed and developed into other creatures and stuff. I mean, it's over millennia. Whereas mankind has been like that. If you look at it on the scale of, the immensity of time on our planet, that our progression has gone from zero to building rockets if you're talking about it in minutes, in 20 seconds.
yeah, exactly.
It's way too fast. There's
Gone from
something going on there.
the horse and
Definitely.
buggy to the car to rockets.
Yeah.
And Jubba Jub there points out that a lot of the technology that we have originally came from Area 51. I've heard
There you
that. I
go.
lived in
Yeah.
Las Vegas, heard a lot about Area
Yeah.
51. I've been out on Freedom Ridge at a time when you could still climb up there. Now Freedom Ridge is restricted. Go figure that. But Bob Lazar, who claimed to have worked at that area, and it was found he was a contractor there. He had a badge and everything, whether he's telling the truth or not. But he claims to have reverse engineered some of these propulsion systems
See,
that are in use.
that's a hard one. I think with that kind of story. I mean, I remember when I was a nipper and that came out, and I was just wowed by it. Now, again, in them days, what benefit would there have been to be so sensational about things? I mean, he had a dodgy background, but then all of a sudden, not one of his credentials could be found. I mean, why would they? If he's just some chump, that was just a maintenance guy and just happened to know his way around MIT. Was it MIT? I think he was running around in or something like that. I can't remember, but he apparently took a journalist all the way around it and was saying hi to people here and there, and the naysayers kind of thing call him a janitor, don't they? You know, say that it's because he was a janitor, he knew his way around. But the guy can build rockets.
What better
So
way to discredit him? So then that,
that's it.
Even if he was a janitor, he probably saw things, he was privy to things, and people think, oh, don't pay any attention to him. He's just a janitor. But look at this. And you'd be surprised at what people on the periphery like that can observe and can pick up.
Yeah, but can they build rockets like he can?
No.
Yeah, and
most janitors don't say no.
I mean, he's been watched doing his doing actual science things, if you know what I mean. So if he didn't know anything, I think, like again with the whole throwing as much crap up into the air as possible so that you don't know how to discern the truth out of it all, and I think that's a lot
agents of disinformation that are out there.
Yeah, agents of chaos. Yeah,
that used to show up particularly in the early days when people started studying these, what they call them, saucers and things at the time.
Agent
There were
provocateur.
people exactly, they were sent out to cause derision and to get people arguing and to get them away from the truth. And typical magician, don't look at this hand up here.
Yeah,
look at this hand. You're doing
don't
something
look
down
here while I'm
the
doing
other.
this over here. Yeah, exactly.
That's the direction.
And I think because so much water has passed under that bridge as well since those times, since the Betty and Barney Hill and other cases like Roswell and stuff, which we'll get to one day. I think all those sort of things, they've thrown so much ridicule and so much conjecture into the mix that to find the real thing of what happened is just nigh on impossible, because everything becomes, well, that's hearsay, or that's your opinion, or oh, that's not proven, or whereas I know what is definitely true. One day the papers printed that they captured a UFO, the very next day, and this was from army officers and stuff, and then the very next day, this is what's provable, this is what's true, the very next day, no, it's a weather balloon, and some guy stood there as if to, knelt on his knees as if to say, what? And you could tell on the expression on his face, it was not this.
Yeah. Yeah, this is somebody that knew weather balloons, that knew aircraft and things.
There you go.
The saucer crashed, there was bodies, they hauled it out there and then say, oh, it was just a weather balloon. He had some little pieces of what looked like tinfoil or one of those reflective emergency blankets or something. There's no way that crashed and created the havoc and chaos in that little town of Roswell. I've been down there, and it's still a strange place. And,
not to mention the fact, I think, just being a human being myself, I'd think I'd know the difference between a bit of rubber, right, a bit of tinfoil, a bit of plastic, or do you know what I mean, between that and something that's just highly unusual. I think you'd know. That's just just an opinion.
Yeah, and I agree. And then he could tell in that photo, the press photo, and he looked embarrassed. He's like, he's kind of looking up at the camera like,
exactly, as if to
they made me do this.
Yeah, you can tell on the look of it on his face. It's shock, and it's like they right at the last minute, just before he was going to make a statement or something, they've shoved that crap into his hand and said, that's what you found. And he's like, well, it wouldn't have made as much damage as well. And I mean, why would the army feel the need, or the Air Force or whatever, why would they feel the need to sweep the whole area, particle by particle, and pick up every single little thing that's possibly there?
Yeah. And then the rancher, Mac Brazil, and some of those guys, the locals in town saw him being whisked away by government vehicles and stuff, and he looked like he was about to be interrogated or beat up.
Wasn't there a couple of people that went missing after that as well?
I think so.
Because I think there was probably a couple of people that weren't having none of it, mate.
And the ones that did come back wouldn't talk about it.
Towed the line. Yeah, the proverbial. There's a question here. Yeah, did Did Betty and Barney have
have any
children?
children?
I
They
don't know.
did, and I don't know the names of the children, but I was able to find here that they're the grandparents of current UFC strawweight Angela Hill. So that's interesting. Got a
Huh.
ultimate fighter there in the family, but yeah, they apparently did have children if they have grandchildren. So
Oh, that's crazy. That is crazy. Yeah. Like I said, I, I, I am on the believers' side of the Betty and Barney Hill thing. 100%. I mean, like I
something
said,
happened. I think
yeah. I
something
mean, in them
happened.
days, you would, you know as well as I do. In them days, your relationship's taboo anyway, sort of thing. That you'd get frowned upon. So why would you, And when you're just working as a humble, one's a social worker, one's a post office guy. Why the hell would you even, make such a dramatic statement? Why would you call the police?
Yeah.
Because if you were, yeah, the reason they called the police is because they wanted answers. you know, so
And
obviously
then they
something
started. They
happened.
both started having these vivid dreams about 10
Yeah,
days after the encounter. They were having little bits and pieces, I think, of remembering. That was one of the other reasons for the hypnotic regression.
yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah, I wouldn't know.
Well, let's see. Do we got any more questions here? Let's see what we've got here. Too much consistency. They tell to not have some nugget of truth to it. I
Yeah,
agree.
that it's exactly that. That's my point exactly. And not only that, they were the first to come up with the story, right? Because obviously it's been ridiculed by
Yeah.
people because people do that, don't they? And there's also, don't forget, there's also the camp of people that don't want to believe and don't want to accept that could be a possibility that we could be visited by something other than what is here on the planet. Because it's obviously a scary thought. I mean, going back thousands of years, people said they saw them, and they were even Da Vinci even
Yeah.
painted one in
And
a photo. And
some of
plus,
those
there was
old
secret.
religious paintings have what
Yeah,
looks like.
there's one up in the corner, and it looks like a fly. He's made it look like it's a fly, and so nobody takes any notice of it. But if you zoom in, it's a UFO. It's a blatant UFO, and a guy's looking at it like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. Why on earth would Da Vinci have painted that? And also there's a couple of paintings that a painting that if you mirror it and put it together, it's got the face of an alien, of the
I've seen
classic
that.
alien that Betty and Barney Hill were talking about. I mean,
Yeah,
why
with
would
the
I mean,
gray with the
what?
wraparound eyes. Yeah, prior to that, they were little green men from Mars. That was
Yeah,
the first real talk about a gray alien, and that's you hear a lot about the
yeah.
grays now.
Yeah,
And
but like I said, that's why I said about the Betty and Barney Hill thing was weird because why would they have said why would they have created the map idea, the star map, and it being Zeta Reticuli? Surely they would have just drawn a picture sort of thing and said that's Mars. They told us we came from Mars because Mars was the thing.
yeah,
Martians was the thing, wasn't it?
yeah,
So if they were referring to pop culture or they'd been absorbed by the pop culture kind of thing and thought that they'd do a little story about them and aliens, you'd have thought that they would have, because that's the way people work. If you were going to tell a story now, you'd probably tell a story about one of the star systems that we've heard of,
yeah,
because that's what you do, because then people can relate.
yeah. And right around that same time, that, like you said, that was pop culture. You had a TV show My Favorite Martian. No, that didn't come out until after this, but
Yeah,
still,
that's it.
Martians are moon men. You had moon people and
Yeah, that's it. Moon
things like
Man.
that.
Well, they had the first film, wasn't it, where the rocket went into the eye of the guy on the moon. The man in the
Yeah,
moon.
mhm,
That was a silent movie, wasn't it?
yeah. And then to go from that to 2001: A Space Odyssey in such
Yeah.
a short amount of time. And there's
Now isn't
we'll
that
have
a
to talk
weird
about
thing?
that in the future episode because
Yeah. With we
Stanley
got so many
Kubrick
to go on. We've got
and
so many
his
things to talk about as well with
involvement
the
with
whole.
NASA is an interesting rabbit hole to go down. We'll get to that at some point in the future.
There's a lot of stories we could definitely cover, 100%. You know, but like I said, this one being the original. If only you see with today's modern technology, with cameras in a lot of cars now for insurance purposes. This is what I'm waiting for. I'm waiting for one of these cars with these cameras on the front of it and on the back. Like my car has cameras on it, but they're only used when you're in a particular, when you're reversing or, you know what I mean? But you get traffic cameras, basically. You stick a camera on your dashboard, don't you, to for the insurance, really, so that if someone stops in front of you or crashes into you, it's caught on camera and you can use that as evidence for the insurance.
Much like the body cams that police officers wear now.
Much like that. Yeah, there you
changed
go.
a lot of stories when you see the body cam footage, and the same with the dash cam.
Yeah, well, it's even got police officers arrested for being too brutal and stuff, hasn't it? You know,
Yeah, it
so
goes both ways.
it goes both
photographic
ways.
record.
But again, I'm talking about really is it'll be interesting to know or to see if something happens to someone driving along a country road, middle of the night, or miles from anywhere, and they've got one of those cameras on, and they're driving along, and there's a bright light. Say, for instance, the car stops or in mid flow or whatever, and then the camera cuts off, and then it comes back on, and they're driving down the road. That would be the footage to get, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. And then everybody's got the cell phones with the cameras in them.
Yeah.
Waiting for some, because you see somebody, it's usually just a little speck. But now some of the newer phones, they have an AI type thing in there with. You'll have to Google this for yourselves because I can't explain it. But if you take a picture of the moon with certain cameras, like camera phones, it actually goes out and gets an image of the moon and puts that in there like you took that picture. And that's not the picture you took at all. It's the whole thing is
Wow.
psyop. So that's some of the new AI that's available in the phones.
Yeah,
That's
I
not
don't think
really
that's
the moon,
good.
but
I don't think
no,
that's
it's
good
not at
in
all.
the
So
slightest. Yeah, no, I want the picture I take to be the picture I take. AI. Don't like AI at all.
yeah, it's a tool. It's useful for some things, but it can be dangerous in
Well,
the
it's the
wrong
same as
hands.
everything. Everything is a double-edged sword, isn't it?
Yeah. And I got a comment sent to me here that's not in the chat. I don't believe an interracial couple in that time would have wanted any more negative attention than they likely already
There,
got.
there you go. That's what I
Career
said.
ending and blacklisting attention for what? They both have to be nuts to be lying. And I agree.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. That's one of the first things I thought of is because it was in a time when it wasn't very acceptable.
Right. So
It
why
was
would they want to
that's why I
call
said it
even
was everybody
further
frowned
attention
upon it, and
towards it?
their work colleagues would have frowned upon it, let alone the police, and other authorities. It's a crazy thing. Why would you even start talking about something like that? Because you just keep that stuff to yourself, wouldn't you? They must have been fearful. They must have really needed answers because they'd have had those, like you said, they'd have had nightmares about things happening to them and stuff. And like, why are we getting this?
Well, and
Not
I've
to
heard
mention,
debunkers even say that it wasn't a UFO incident at all, that it was a racially motivated incident, and that's why her dress was torn and why Barney looked like he'd been dragged. But why would they even go to the point to make up a cover story if they've been jumped and beaten
they'd say they'd
because of
been
their
jumped and
relationship?
beaten.
Or they
Exactly
just
that.
wouldn't have said anything at all. They wouldn't say, hey, we got to make up a wild UFO tale about this when we got beat
Yeah.
up out in the middle of the mountains. So
Yeah,
I don't
absolutely
buy
not.
that either.
They'd have ousted the people that did it. They'd have said that we were jumped upon by a group of people, or whatever, wouldn't they? They would never ever have just made up a bloody story
Yeah.
about being abducted by,
They didn't.
creatures not of this earth,
Yeah, they didn't stand to gain a thing from all that.
No.
Even though there was books, the Interrupted Journey, and it was later made into I think a TV movie or something like that. It's fascinating reading. Somewhat dated, but it's still interesting. If you're not familiar with the case, that's a good place to start.
Yeah. Like I say, for me, I have to get educated via this. My reading abilities is not the fact I can't read. It's just my dyslexia doesn't allow me to read happily.
Yeah.
So I have to get people to read books to me, like Steve Stockton style. You just use that voice and read me a story, boy.
It is what it is. And I've had people ask me, why don't you narrate audiobooks? That's in the works. So stay
Yeah,
tuned.
I'll be reading. Well, I'll be listening to those books. I can tell you.
I put myself to sleep before in the editing booth. Nicole, my wife, listens to me to go to sleep. Just Steve Stockton all the time.
I fall asleep to your voice all the time.
Yeah. And I don't take that as an insult.
It's your
People think,
blooming fault. Stop
I'm
having such a
sorry.
sultry voice, mate. That's what I
I'm
say.
sorry to tell you this, but I listen to you to go to sleep. But I do go back and listen later to get. But that's okay. I don't mean if my voice relaxes you and helps you sleep, then God bless you.
Yeah, if I'm tired, I daren't. I stick you on, mate. I've got to play a game or something on the Xbox to keep me awake.
I've had it happen to me. I've dozed off here in the editing suite, and have to go back and listen and see if I didn't cut out a burp or a fart or something, But
yeah, not good, mate. Oh, hello, Joanne. I did say hello to her in the chat.
Susan Woodcarver, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, Susan. Yeah, hi, Susan.
And I don't think there's anybody else that we
D-Rock's here.
Got a good showing for our first show. And
yeah, you can't complain, can you?
It's going to be a weekly Wednesday night thing. But it's just, we're just two friends that like to discuss UFOs. And from beyond, that can be anything. Lee and I were talking about that earlier, or yesterday, I think it was, that it could be from beyond Earth. It could be from beyond this galaxy, the solar system, or just
from beyond the grave,
beyond the natural world, from beyond the grave. So UFOs is just one of the many unexplained things that we'll be looking at here. But I thought Betty and Barney Hill is a good place to start because that did kind of start the whole the modern day abduction.
Well, I think it was the first case that was actually taken seriously by a lot of people, wasn't it? Because of the like we were discussing, the fact that you wouldn't oust yourself like that, you wouldn't make a public a show of yourself, kind of thing, in the circumstances they were in of the time.
Yeah, Danny likes UFOs, and Joanne Yoda Girl said hello to everybody. Hey,
well, I like UFOs now.
Yeah, just a little hint there, a little giveaway there, but. Sometime you'll have to take that and show it to people. I was just amazed. First time I ever saw that, I was just hanging out at your show. I didn't get to know you or anything yet at that point. And I thought, where did he get that? And I'm like out Googling and looking on Etsy UFO model, and I could find some little ones about this big. I'm like, no, he's got a big one. Where can I get one like that?
Yeah, well, I built it as a prop. It's
more
a prop
by hand, so there you go.
It's actually from a video that I'm going to be doing, and I am going to be able to start doing it now, which is I'm actually getting quite excited because
an even bigger one, and then put it over, say, a Vespa or something like that, and get out and race around in your town, and people claim they saw a UFO driving down the motorway or whatever. The M1.
Yeah, I think people would definitely look at me.
Or they'd take a shot at you or something too.
I said I do this, and I'm a musician and stuff, but I kind of keep it under the radar. I'm a bit of a hermit.
Yeah. Well, maybe I know because you've done music related to UFOs and stars in the galaxy. Maybe you draw your inspiration from space. I think that was there in the beginning.
Oh, this was my intrigue into it all started from a really young age. Just interested. I'm just one of them people that anything that's unusual in the world and anything really I'm that's what I'm here for. As far as I'm concerned, is to absorb information. Don't know why, but
it's
that's
quest
just
to find. And I found out a long time ago that I'm no longer looking for answers. I gave up on that. I'm just looking for the next set of questions.
Yeah,
A
that's
lot of the
just
stuff
constant questions.
there
Questions.
are no answers.
Yeah. Well, questions begat questions, and that's
And
literally
if
it.
we had all the answers, then what fun would that be? My life and my
It'd be a
experiences
boring
wouldn't
life,
be
mate, if you knew
anywhere near as
everything.
much fun if I knew all the stuff I was looking into. But look forward to more episodes, and we'll stick around for a few more minutes here. Now, you mentioned that you had an experience. I'll show you mine if you show me yours. So what was your UFO experience?
As you know, I did on your. I said on your radio show, I've had actual 7 incidences that I can recall that were of interest, kind of thing, and can't necessarily be explained. But the main one, if I was going to say a main one, I mean, I've got footage of one above my house, as you know. But I think the main one that I have is when I was fishing with a friend. I was talking to him, and I was looking at the end of my rod, waiting for it to start biting. And as I've looked up, this big orbs come across, big white orb, and it's sort of like moving like liquidy light. It's really weird. No, not illuminating. So it wasn't shining light down onto the water or anything like that. And if I raised my hands above my head, it was about the size of a basketball. And I'm shouting to my mate, Lance, look at this. And we were 5 seconds ago talking to each other about whatever we were talking about. I can't recall that. But I'm still looking at this thing, and I'm calling him, Lance. So I've slowly crept over towards where his bivvy was, which is about 15 to 20 feet away from me, and I'm still looking at this thing floating across. And I'm calling him. He's not answering. I'm like, what's going on? So I get up to his bivvy, and I start bashing on his bivvy. And, Lance, look at this. And he's gone, what? And as soon as he's gone, what? And sort of grabbed the tent. I've looked at him, and goes, look. And then when I've looked back, it's gone. And I've never been so frustrated in all my existence, because literally, like I said, the 5 seconds before I saw this thing across. Now, see, like the Betty and Barney Hill thing, it always makes me think, well, did they, because all of a sudden he couldn't hear me, was I put into a bubble? Was I taken up? Was I, did something happen in that time? What happened? 'Cause I didn't notice any difference in time, but then again, my mobile wasn't charged, and it was in my jacket, because obviously I was there fishing. I wasn't interested in having my phone out. That's why you go fishing, to get away from technology and stuff, And yeah, so, and he wouldn't acknowledge me, so I've crept over, and he still, again, it was gone. So it's the moment I looked away, it's not there. It's so frustrating. I've had, like I said, there's other occasions as well. Me and my father, the first one was driving along the motorway, which you guys call a highway, and right in front of us is an orange orb. And I said, it's a bit strange there, Dad, isn't it? And he's gone, yeah, it's a bit weird, isn't it? And then instantly we said, that's a bit strange. It's moved and gone. And we're like, where'd that go? It just blinked out. And we carry on driving along. We look at each other. That's strange, wasn't it? And he said, yeah. I've looked over to the left. Here, Dad, it's there. Look, it's right. And it was right next to us in a field. And it did the same thing again, just blinked out. We're like, and it wasn't like a reflection in the window or any of those things, it wasn't like the glass thing that happens. It wasn't anything like that. It wasn't like a reflective. It was in the field. It was an orb. Crazy. And then we never really spoke about it again. It was the crazy thing. Another time at fishing with another friend, we saw a green orb go across the horizon, and it was so quick. It was within 2 seconds it gone from one side to the other side, but on the same token of the distance kind of thing, or was it what it looked like? You can't really tell because it's a green orb, so you can't tell how far away it was, height or anything. But when you look at ships out in the distance, they take forever to go. 2 inches, they take an hour, So this thing going that, it was like 2,000 odd miles an hour by that sort of standard. Crazy stuff. And anyway, you're leaving me up here just to chat my stories off. We're here for Betty and Barney Hill. We're not here for me.
There we go. Well, I was giving you the floor there, Lee, so you could tell your story, especially when you start talking about your dad. I mean, those are poignant, precious memories for you, and I didn't want to
Well,
sit here and nod my head.
it's the whole thing. Well, my very first understanding of anything was strange was my brother and I, my older brother and I, used to run away from home a lot. Long story, but we used to travel down this cutway every single time to get to leave, and we always used to think the moon was following us. Later on in life, we realised the moon comes up in the opposite hemisphere.
So there you
So
go.
that's it.
What was it?
That's a bit of a nutty one, yeah.
Yeah, I went to college with a guy that we talked about when he was a small child, like 3 or 4 years old. He was looking at what he thought was the moon, and he said it came down like almost touching him, he thought, and it smiled at him. And then he turned around and ran, and there was the moon in the sky behind him. It wasn't the moon at all. He has no idea
Yeah.
what that was.
Well, this is weird because we saw it in the northern hemisphere,
Mhm.
and obviously for us it comes up in the east and leaves in the west.
And just the
That's
fact that
crazy.
a couple times that you were fishing there, that happened.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
famous Pascagoula abduction that happened in Pascagoula, Mississippi back in 1973 was, let me think of the name, Charles Hickson and Calvin Parker. That they were just that. They were out fishing and they claimed to have been abducted. That was a famous case. 73 was just a weird year. There was a huge UFO flap that year. I was 10 years old. And my parents and I would go up to my brother's house. He lived on the highest hill in the area. We would go up there and sit out in the lawn chairs after dark in the summertime, like on a Friday or Saturday night, and watch these unexplained lights in the sky. So 73 was
Crazy.
just a good year for UFOs.
Yeah, like I said, this is why. See, I think a lot of my intrigue into it is because of those really early memories. I mean, I was 4 when I thought the moon was following us. My brother was 6, so I think that's what maybe sparked off though I didn't know it at the time, clearly, but I think that's what maybe sparked off my interest into it. And then later on, seeing so many things, like that wasn't it. Just those
And
stories there. And another time I was at the front of my house. I've seen 3 so far where my house is, where I am now in my house. And now I live in suburbia. But one night when there was like 6 of us stood outside and we were all watching lanterns go up. And we released one for Kim's mum. We all released one. And we're watching these lanterns go up. And we can tell, it's a lantern. And watching them all as you go up, you get to notice and understand what they look like at distance. So we're watching these things. And they've gone off into the air. But they're going up and they're moving sort of thing. They move up like that with the wind a little bit. But move upwards. Constantly upwards. Yeah. I've looked down the road, down towards the south, really, if you want to call it that, down towards the south of where our road is. And above the tree, this orb came up and just started travelling along, and it was travelling at a perfect mile, kind of speed, like however fast, 40 miles an hour or whatever. But it's travelling in a dead straight line, which you can tell it's not a lantern as well, because again, I always liken this because again it was like the liquidy light thing, and it wasn't emitting light, but it was light. You could clearly see it. But I always liken this one to the Teletubbies sun. The Teletubbies sun, and it's got the fake little beams of light that come out of it like that and
mhm.
disappear. This thing was doing exactly the same thing. There was like points of light coming out from it and just retracting and I'm looking at it. I've got everybody else to look at it, and they kind of fobbed it off. And I said, no, you need to look at this. It's a mad thing when other people really don't care. It's really frustrating because, this is some phenomenon that we could all be witness to. And though they saw it with me, the interest in it was not even 1% of what I had. I was just fixated on this thing. And it travelled across the house. And as it got to the top of my house, I ran inside to go and get my camera. By the time I'd come out, it was gone. It was so far away, it wasn't even worth trying to film. So, that was another time. And then I've got 2 times where I've filmed them over my house as well. One time it came across from where the moon was, which was, it was actually in the west at the time, the moon was, almost on its end of its trajectory. And from the moon, I've seen this dot, and I'm thinking, well, is that Venus? because normally, you know, there's Venus next to it, isn't there? But no, it wasn't Venus. It was moving. I'm like, well, that's weird. It was just a steady light, and it was moving. And I know, again, I know all the traffic of aircraft that go across our house and estate and stuff. We have helicopters that, you know, obviously police helicopters that fly about in different directions and do circles around our area. But they're so loud and so low that even when they're higher, you can hear every single blade, you know, beating the wind. This thing, and you could hear a drone as well. Because it echoes through our whole area. Any sort of noise echoes through the houses. So this thing wasn't a drone. It wasn't a helicopter. It's just a steady light traveling along. I've got it on one of my videos actually. It's really brief, but I've put it on Where Trouble Finds You. I think it's one of the favourites as well. I've put in the popular list on my channel. But then there's another one where I've actually, because now I've had these sightings, I thought I had my camera right near the door. Right? After I saw that one, I had my proper camera by the door, just in readiness for something
Just
like that
in
again.
case, yeah.
And I've stepped outside, and lo and behold, I've looked to the left, which is to the back of my house, and there's an orb above the tree line moving along, and I'm like, that's another thing. Grabbed my camera, I didn't even hesitate, grabbed my camera, ran out to the front of the house because I knew it was going to come across, and started filming it. I've shown you guys, haven't I? I've shown you, and I've shown it on my show before, I think. But I might have to release that one because that is a pretty good piece of footage, and let people have their critique and stuff.
Amazing.
But you have to understand that we can hear everything. If it was a drone, we'd have heard it, and because it was 3 o'clock in the morning. You know, you hear a motorbike come past, and you could hear how loud it was and how good the camera is at picking it up because it's a 5.1 surround. So it's a full HD camera, but the aperture on it is a triangle. So when I zoomed in, the actual shape of the orb did triangulate, but that's the aperture, right? So you know, so long as you understand that that's what that is, but then it moves along and then drops like that, and then comes along and drops again like that. But you have to notice it against the street lights. And what you can also notice is there's no flare on it. You know how a street light has light flare? I can't remember what they call it. There's an actual word for that, and I always forget that word. But the orb doesn't have that. Now, if it was a drone having a light, it would flare. It would do the same thing as any light would do. It would have the light spikes. It didn't have that. And the other thing as well, someone said to me, or I thought of the suggestion that it could be like a police drone. But if it was a police drone, it would have the red and green lights on it flashing. Because, you know, there's the the FDA? No, it's something to do with the flight people anyway. You know, you have to have a license.
It's the FAA, the Federal
FAA, yeah. It has to have the flight lights. It has to have the red and the green lights to let you know that it's... So if it was a police drone, it would have definitely had those lights on it, and it wasn't. It was a steady white light. If it was someone dealing drugs with a... See, I've thought about these things. If it was someone dealing drugs with a drone, they wouldn't keep a bloody light on it, would they?
No, you wouldn't think so.
You wouldn't have a light on it so that everybody could see the light. They would deactivate the light, I would have thought. You know? So...
It's the reason.
So, and like I said, and sound-wise and flight pattern-wise, I know all the flight patterns across our area. You know, I live here, I watch the skies all the time. The sky. It's not the skies, it's the sky. It wraps the earth, you know, in one. So yeah, it's a crazy thing, and I've got, you know, having the footage is sort of you know, sort of sticks up for me a little bit. You know what I mean? With the stories, because I've seen so many. It's kind of like, yeah, you could pass it all off. You know, yeah, well, you don't know what that was, and you don't know what that was, and you don't know what that was. And anyway, where's your footage? You know, that kind of thing. You know, I always like to, you know, have a go at myself first, as someone else would. You know, so having the footage is a little bit of a, you know, look, I've got footage. You know, you can think of it what you will.
But you know what you saw, and that's the thing in a lot of these
That
sightings.
is it. Yeah.
People that weren't there, it's easy to debunk it or say, oh, it's this or that, or it's a bug on the lens or whatever. But if you were there, you know what you saw, and you know it wasn't any of those things.
Exactly. Yeah. See, that does annoy me when people are ridiculed over something that they know. You know, they 100%. So this is what brings me back to the Betty and Barney Hill thing. I mean, for me, even talking about it, I feel a little bit, should I be talking about it? Because you know how people react to these things. But we're in the modern society where people accept all kinds of beliefs and systems and stuff, and have spoken about it so much that, again, with all the quagmire that's thrown in the air, there's plenty of stories out there that are more fantastic than mine. I mean, we won't even go there with some of them. You know exactly who I mean. We won't even mention the names because you don't want to give them I don't want to give them a platform.
Exactly.
But there's some fantastic stories. That some people were beamed away for 20 and back and stuff. Let's just not go there.
No.
I mean, there's fantasy and there's reality. Yeah, seeing an orb is not. I'm not saying it's aliens. I'm not saying it's a UFO, but it is a UFO because it's unidentified. I can't identify it.
It doesn't mean it's a flying saucer.
Doesn't mean it's aliens from another world.
Now it's what's the new phrase? UAP, unidentified aerial.
Yeah, unidentified.
The change
aerial phenomenon.
There. So
I don't know why they changed the name to try and class it up a bit or something, or to just to move away from the UFO crowd.
Yeah. And the UFO crowd, they are fervent people. I spoke at a UFO conference in San Francisco. That's been 2 or 3 years ago now. And those people are very firm in what they believe. I mean, I didn't see any fistfights or anything, but it wouldn't have surprised me if it came to that.
Yeah, but, I'm with Fast Hermit on that.
Yeah.
UAP my rear.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's a UFO, and that's the end of it. What's wrong with the designation unidentified flying object? It is an unidentified. It's flying, and it's an object.
Exactly. Why confuse people further? Well, my experience, probably the best one, and I'm not sure it was something extraterrestrial, but it was sure strange. I was living in Las Vegas at the time. I was a manager at one of the casinos, one of the big ones. I'll go ahead and say Treasure Island. And I was getting out of work. It was about 2:00 in the morning, and I gave one of my employees a ride home. And we were going south on the strip, past Mandalay Bay and all that, headed towards Henderson in that area. And over a substation down there at the south end of the Vegas Strip, there was a black triangle. I mean, it was as big as a football field. Black as black can be. There was no reflection, no lights or anything on it. And it was just hovering over the substation. And I saw it. The person that I was giving a ride to, they saw it as well. Got out, looked at it, observed it. It probably wasn't more than 15 or 20 seconds. It seemed like a lot longer than that. But Lee, it was just hovering there over that power substation.
So it's over a power station. So how about this? How about wireless charging?
Yeah, that's what I think it was. But it was like
funny how we've got that tech now as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it noticed us seeing it, and I've heard cases of that before where they would go over a substation and the lights would go out, but that didn't happen. The lights stayed on, as far as I know. But it was there, and then it just wasn't. And I didn't actually see it go up, but I had a sense of upward motion. But whatever it was, I mean, it straight up just it was there, and then it wasn't. I'm not sure if it winked out or if it flew up and out of sight. In just a millisecond, but had a witness there with me. We both saw it, and no idea what that was. But that's been my most intense sighting. But again, I'm not sure that was something extraterrestrial. Again, that's just over the hill from Area 51, and they test.
I think your most intriguing story is the black-eyed children in the car park.
Yeah.
I mean, that is freaky, dude.
Yeah, I don't think that was related to UFOs, but it could be. That probably goes.
But there is that link between those two things, isn't there? People have always said that they've seen this orb land in a field somewhere, and the next thing they know, they're having a knock on the door by two little children saying, "Can we come in, please?"
Bigfoot or Sasquatch encounters; those are seen in areas where usually there's UFO activity, sometimes at the same time.
Yeah.
So are they bringing those creatures and letting them out to do something, or
are they the extraterrestrials? This is the thing, isn't it?
It
You
is.
know,
And it's,
why do they have to be? I mean, where did the idea for you see Star Wars, right? I mean, you could mock it all you like, but where did the idea come from for Chewbacca? To me that what they're referring to right there is the idea of a Sasquatch, aren't they? A
exactly.
Bigfoot, 100%.
Yeah. And then the other encounter, I don't know that if it was UFO related, but it kind of went along with something that Jubba Jub was saying there, where he'd never seen anything, but he had heard strange noises in the woods, mechanical sounding noises. I meant to start that comment so I could go back to it, but
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
lost it here. But
Those
anyway,
mechanical sounds that people hear, the grinding and stuff, really
yeah,
loud, and they can't pinpoint where it's coming from. That's some weird
yeah,
sound.
the they hear those sounds. There's a town in Oregon where they hear those
Yeah,
sounds, kind of a rumble or a hum.
yeah.
Taos, New Mexico has a famous one. And but this was, I was a junior in high school, and I lived in a subdivision. And there was a kid that lived up the street that was a year behind me. So he would have been a sophomore. And we rode BMX bikes, dirt bikes, the pedal variety, not the
Yeah,
motor ride.
I used to have BMX, mate. We all did that in the 80s, mate.
Yeah. And there was three areas to this subdivision. The first section had been developed for a while. We both lived in the second section. The third section was just being developed, and the only thing they had up there was paved roads. There was no houses. It was all wooded lots. So we would go up there and ride in the upper part of phase three because there was no cars, no traffic, no people. We could do whatever we wanted to. And we were pedaling along. It was late in the evening. It was probably school had started back, so it was probably September or something like that. And we're riding along, and off to my right, I hear a noise up in the woods. It sounded very mechanical. I can't even really begin to describe it. And I looked up that way, and then when I looked back, I'm still on my bike. I'm still pedaling along, but we're going in the other direction. We were going out of the subdivision. Now we're headed back down the hill. We didn't say a word to each other. I was spooked. He went in his driveway. I went on down the block. I went into mine. I go into my house. My parents are like, "Where you been?" I was out riding bikes with Danny. They're like, "Well, it's getting late. We're worried about you." And when he and I were up there, it was probably 8:30. And when I came back home, which just seemed like a few minutes, it was almost 11 o'clock or a little after 11. So there's at least 2 hours in there that
Yeah,
I
that's
can't
that's
account for.
freaky. That's
And
freaky.
I talked to him a couple of days after that. And I said, "Did anything weird happen the other night when we were riding bikes up there?" And he looked at me and he's like, "I thought I was going crazy." But we both experienced the same thing, but we're reticent to talk about it. And he experienced the same thing I did. We were going one direction. He heard the noise too, and then all of a sudden we're on our bikes going the other direction. If I was abducted, people have asked me, "Would you undergo hypnotic regression?" A part of me would like to, but then another part
Yeah,
of
it
me, if
scares
I've
me.
been probed, I don't want to know about it. I mean, there's
Yeah,
a
same
reason
as.
to not
It's
remember. So
it's like that orb that came across me when I was talking to Lance, and then he wasn't hearing me. That that I always think to myself, did something happen there, and they froze him, sort of thing, or turned him off,
yeah,
made him sleep, because literally we were both fishing. We were in the throes of, watching our lines and chatting. So why all of a sudden that thing comes over my head, and why do I keep seeing them? This is the other thing. What why would I see them?
I
You got
think
to be
it's like that with cryptids. It's like that with ghosts. Some people see them more often than others. You have predilection toward it, I think. And I think that's your thing. And then you express that through your art and your creativity and stuff. And I think that's something that's been imbued inside you, and you're driven
Yeah,
to
yeah. I
recreate
mean,
these things.
you could see it on a spiritual level, kind of thing. The I'm still open to something. As they say, children are open, but maybe I haven't. Like so many, that I haven't lost that openness to possibility, because I don't write anything off. I am a skeptic. Don't get me wrong. I'm a skeptic of my own stuff. What I'm seeing. That's why I'm saying it's unidentified. I'm not saying it's an alien. I'm not saying it's a flying saucer. I'm not saying it's an alien spacecraft. All I'm saying is I can't identify it. But that nevertheless, it nevertheless makes me think, what if it is? You know, you still have to have that possibility that it could be, you know, extra. You know, it's a crazy thing. It's crazy.
No.
Hello,
Well,
Chair.
Lee,
How you doing?
I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up here for
Yeah,
this
mate. Yeah.
episode of From Beyond. But we had a good talk. Thank you for joining me, and we'll see what's in store next Wednesday night. What do you got coming up this week, Lee?
Well, as you know, tomorrow will be not be Radio 1FA back-to-back original tracks. Yeah, and and then Saturday, you know, my normal live singer performance, just doing cover versions and maybe a couple of my own here and there, you know, like I do.
Always look forward to it. But thank you for co-hosting here. We're
Ah,
both the
no, mate.
co-host.
I'm
And
in it for the long haul, mate.
Beyond, yeah, we're going to
See
have a
what I
lot
did
of
there?
fun here. Be sure and tune in each week. We're going to have some guests coming up. We'll be talking other cases and things, but always something unusual and something from beyond.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us, everybody.
Yep. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you next week. Thanks, everybody. Good night, Lee.
Night, mate.